Hey guys, and welcome back to Talking with Shadows, the conversation everybody has, but no one wants to admit to. Here with your host, Vic Whaley.
And Marcus D. And guys, if Vic seems a little crabby during the episode, it's because when we did our ritual trip to Sonic, he did not get his Reese's Pieces Super Mega Red Moon Overload Blast.
Okay.
That he gets every time.
Okay, I always go and get the Sonic Reese's Overload Blast because it has Reese's Pieces in it, and I flippin' love Reese's Pieces. But they bring it out to me, no Reese's Pieces on it. So I'm like, hey, something doesn't look right. Are you sure this is the right order? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right.
No, she said there's something wrong with our ice cream today.
Okay, yeah, that was pretty weird.
That was her first explanation.
So then I'm like, well, it usually looks different. Usually it has, like Reese's Pieces on it. And after quite a bit of discussion, she's like, can I go get some and you just put it on top? I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I don't really mind mixing it myself. It's whatever. So she goes and comes back with like a thing of crushed up Reese's cups, just hands it to me and then walks off. And I'm just like, the heck? So not only am I mixing my own shake now, I'm also like mixing the wrong toppings in.
Well, the whole time, like, you're saying that to her, she's like, can I have some in a cup? And she just walked, and you're like, yeah, she walked away. I'm like, if they had it, they could give it to you in a cup. Why didn't they just put it in there? And nobody says anything.
I thought they just forgot to put it in. That's what I thought was going on. God, why do we keep going to that Sonic? They are so bad.
It's so bad. Well, you know what? I change up my order every now and then. I change up my order every now and then to mix it up. And I don't know why we keep going back there. Maybe it's because we don't want to drive all the way to Dairy Queen.
Maybe that's it.
It could be just laziness. That's the reason why we're not doing it.
It is close to the studio, so...
It is. All right, and today, guys, I'm going to be drinking a virgin rum and Diet Coke.
That was lame.
That was
lame.
Oh, I know it was, because I don't think we didn't get alcohol for this episode. You just handed me a Diet Coke, and I'm like, all right.
When I was cleaning the studio, I found some more beers.
Where's the beers?
Yeah, let me get them. I didn't know that we were doing this.
Where's the beers?
Over here.
Where's the beers?
I found one more of the Reds.
You were hiding alcohol from me?
I said I found it while I was cleaning the studio.
Surprise, surprise. Isn't this convenient?
I'm going to take it back from you.
No.
That?
No.
Okay.
We need to drink while we're talking about today's topic. We have a very good topic. But before we get into today's episode, I want to go over some of the comments that you guys had from our last episode, where we talked about mannequin people, this weird paranormal entity that people have been seeing that looks like a department store mannequin. If you guys haven't seen this episode, definitely go back and check it out. It's a weird entity that more and more people are reporting seeing now.
It's one of those really chilling, odd, obscure ones that you don't really hear about very often, but can really like hit you in the right place.
Okay, so we got Shannon Shazbados, fan 46, said, in Mexico, there is the legend of La Pascualita, I got that right, that might be related to the mannequin people topic on today's show. I would not be surprised if that is true. We've actually, a lot of topics that we've done, we've started noticing that there is a trend in other countries where people have reported similar things.
I actually don't know this legend offhand. I'm going to have to do some looking into it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Steph said, the Kelpie is Scottish folklore, not English. You got served.
Okay.
Vic. Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that.
My bad. That area really isn't my area of focus, and sometimes I will get those confused.
I want your know-it-all card back.
You can have it.
Gray9438 says, a theory I've heard with why people seem to witness paranormal entities while driving is that the act of going from one place to another puts them in a liminal state, which either seems to attract paranormal or make people more perceptive to it.
I like that answer. I like that answer a lot.
I like that answer a lot. Actually, while you're driving, driving creates a lot of anxiety and tension in a lot of people, and when you do that, it creates increased sensory acuity and would probably make a person more inclined to be aware of strange stuff that's going on around them. So, I totally believe that. 100%. Blue Steel says, patron, I believe. No. Blue Steel says, thank you guys for the content. I just discovered your channel, and there's a ton of fascinating material to go through here. I try to find the rational explanation in everything, but I also think that there are just way too many still unexplained and weird phenomenon that still happen for anyone to be able to just brush off this kind of stuff off. Even with how far we have come in science, there are still a ton of questions that we just don't have an answer for. I'll be sure to share your guys' channel around my paranormal group so we can discuss. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. And thank you, by the way, Blue Steel. We forgot to... I feel bad at this point. You know what? This entire episode is dedicated to you, Blue Steel, who I realize that is our newest patron.
You know, we
to the One Candle family.
We haven't cheersed yet. Well, let's cheers now.
Cheers
to you, Blue Steel, and all the rest of our fans.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And speaking of fans, I think it's time for us to make a certain announcement that we've been hinting at for a while.
You guys have been voting all month for the name that you want Vic and us to call you guys by. And the winner of our poll that we put out is Shades.
Rising from the shadows, skulking in the dark, seeking out all knowledge paranormal comes the Shades. I love it. I love it.
I love that. Thank you guys, everybody who submitted a name. Thank you guys, everybody, for voting and giving your guys' comments on it. It meant so much to us for you guys giving us your input on this.
And thank you very much. And me and Marcus were talking before the show on how to pronounce the name of the person who actually gave this recommendation. We're going to go with Illing Reality.
That was yeah.
And if that's not how you say that, please let us know.
You pronounced that about as phonetically as we kind of could. That was a very interesting name that they had there. Yeah.
But thank you for the suggestion. Apparently, it was pretty well liked.
Awesome. So, guys, I think it's time to get into today's episode. So, today we're going to do something a little bit different than what we do. We thought that for today's episode, we could kind of talk about something that's kind of a little bit close. That's really close to me and Vic's heart. As a lot of you guys know, me and Vic work in mental health as our day job. That's what we do all day long. And we thought that we would like to talk about mental health and its relationship to the paranormal. All throughout the time that we've been investigating the paranormal, doing case studies, home visits, researching stuff in the paranormal. Mental health comes up a lot, but it's not. I don't think it's talked about in the right context.
It's more thrown around as a almost a insulting.
It is. It's weaponized. It's a weapon that people use in order to shame people in the paranormal community. I mean, almost every single skeptic explanation for something in the paranormal usually includes that somebody is crazy and making it up, or that they're delusional.
Oh yeah, mass delusion, mass hysteria, even for things where lots of people see something. And what happens when someone says, I saw a monster, I saw an alien, I saw a ghost? A lot of people go, that person's crazy.
Anybody that's really into anybody in the paranormal community can tell you, when you're dealing with a paranormal experience, it can be, incredibly traumatic. I mean, I remember the day that, I was talking about that time that I saw a shadow animal while I was out in my backyard reading a book. I mean, that stuck with me for days, and that wasn't even really anywhere near traumatic as the extent of some of the stories that we've read.
Oh yeah, there's a few times where I've had paranormal experiences while out in the woods very far from civilization, and they've thrown me into kind of that fight or flight mode where it's okay, this is a bad spot, I could die here, I need to get to civilization fast. And those are scary moments.
Yeah. So I guess a good place to start, I think, this conversation why do you think that that calling somebody crazy is thrown around so much at people who claim that they have paranormal experiences?
Oh, I think that's an easy one. Most people don't want to have their reality threatened. And an easy way to prevent your reality from being threatened is immediately to ostracize the person who's doing the threatening.
Yeah.
And I think most people don't want to open up to the possibilities that are out there. I don't think most people want to open up to like the potential that there are aliens out there abducting people, or there are cryptid creatures lurking beyond our normal scope of society.
I think a lot of people want to, they want to keep that feel of control in their lives. And how many people are really gonna feel in control of their lives if they feel that at any moment, a shadow person with red glowing eyes and a top hat could come into their home at any moment, and there's probably not a lot that they could do about it.
Yeah, I think another big part is that it upsets a individual's status quo. Like, once you have what your reality is set, you don't want to reopen, or most people don't want to reopen it, have to change it and reevaluate it. You see that with people when it comes to just general ideas. Like, during your 20s, you're malleable, you're absorbing all these new ideas. During your early 30s, you're starting to slow down on it. And right around your late 30s, 40s, that's the point where a lot of the ideas that you have are more or less not necessarily locked, but they're harder to change than when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, you're very set in your ways once you've reached that point in your life. So many times, me and Vic each have about a decade of mental health and social work, under our belts, and so we've both have encountered people, in our professional career that have claimed to have, paranormal experiences. So we've had a very behind the scenes sort of look at even how, mental health providers and, social workers and doctors even talk about this stuff.
We've been worried about it just for ourselves too. Like, we utilize pseudonyms mainly because we're concerned by how other people within the profession would view it.
Yeah.
And
spoiler alert, Marcus and Vic aren't our real names, guys, for those of you that haven't been following us prior to the podcast.
Like, since then, we've kind of slowed down on the necessity of it and more go with it because it's what we've always done.
Yeah.
But initially, that was a big part of it. And, I know Adam as well. You'll hear us talk about longtime friend of the channel, Adam Mathers. And he also works in a very similar field to us. And he has to deal with the same sort of concerns.
And a lot of times, we've encountered so many clients and patients that have come forward talking about, dealing with instances in the paranormal, and professionals, they laugh it off all the time.
They just assume anything. Okay, this isn't true about every professional in the mental health world. There are lots of them that are great.
That's true. Okay, sorry, yeah, I'm probably speaking a little bit hyperbole there. I think part of it too is that they are having to decompress for also dealing with somebody who's in a very traumatic situation as well, because it's very traumatic to be around people that are going through traumatic experiences. So, there's probably a little bit of that element that's in there too.
And beyond that, a lot of them don't take the time to consider the possibilities out there. As soon as someone says something that's outside the norm, they often stop examining, is this a realistic perspective the person has, or are they just going to respond, oh, this is just psychosis?
Yeah, and I can remember one just easily off the top of my head. Me and Vic were at work one day, and we had a patient that came and they was talking about that they were coming and they were talking about, they were absolutely concerned. They were like, there are politicians that are out in the woods and they're performing these rituals before a giant 40-foot owl.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Oh man, they're really crazy," and I'm just like, "No, that's a thing."
Yeah, that's Bohemian Grove. That's a real thing, and everybody was just like, "What?" They're like that Pikachu gif where they're just staring blankly at us.
Yeah, I was referring people to the snuck out video from Bohemian Grove.
I think at that point we had even put on our video on Bohemian Grove, just sharing it with people so that they could see what they were talking about. So like this person, they were they were definitely mentally ill, but what they were communicating is a real thing. They weren't even communicating anything that isn't delusional. They weren't even doing any of the possibly out there stuff with Bohemian Grove. They were just talking about the confirmed stuff that just there's Republican politicians in the woods that do weird ceremonies before a giant 40-foot owl. That was it. And that's legit stuff. Like, that's all stuff that's 100% true, but it was coming from a person that was mentally ill. So the mental illness had nothing to do with the stuff of what they were saying,
And it was all just lumped together, too.
Yeah. So.
Well, people are very hesitant to believe things that come from people who are mentally ill. People write them off way too quickly, way too often. Just because sometimes someone has delusions or psychosis doesn't mean everything they say is connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
That is one part of who they are. That's not the full amount of who they are. But let's flip it. What about the stress that paranormal investigators have to be under? Like,
absolutely. That I get that.
Oh yeah. Actually, I'm going to bring up an example involving you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This isn't out yet, or at least it's not out at the time of us recording this, but we do have an upcoming case file, and it's a pretty long one on tulpas.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were working on that,
oh yeah.
How did that go for you?
I kind of snapped a little bit because it really disturbed me for some of the stuff that I was finding. Like I didn't want I don't want to spoil it for the fact that the case file's not up. That's our most recent one that I'm still working. It's a big one, but by the way, it's probably going to be one of the longest case files that we've ever.
Oh, it's going to be the longest.
Yeah, the longest that we've ever done. But as I'm researching it and I'm discovering things about tulpas and them as an entity and things that they could be doing, I found a very disturbing fact showing how organized they are. And I kind of lost it for a little bit. I did. I was terrified. I was concerned.
And what did I tell you real early into this one? Because he hadn't researched tulpas very much before we started working on that case file.
Good.
And one of the things I told you early on is be careful with this one. This one will screw with your head. Because years ago when I initially did some research on tulpa, it screwed with me. It's an idea that kind of screws with your mind a little bit.
I was Alice falling down the rabbit hole. And I found the box of stuff that says "Eat me," and I ate the whole thing. Like that's kind of what happened.
And I've heard of plenty of paranormal investigators running into things that kind of went beyond their normal worldview and either leaving the field, or basically having to pull back for a while, or even just the people who get too obsessed with it and dive in too far too fast.
Yeah, you can fall into this. You can definitely fall into this world. And it'd be bad for your mental health. I mean, I know that's why anytime that we go out on a paranormal investigation, one of the things that's really important to us, when we come back is the cool down period, where we do something like, we go get ice cream or we go to Denny's or we go smoke a cigarette or something like that where, it's in order to cool our jets, so to speak, before we come back to get us in a better, mind frame before we go home.
Mm-hmm. It's always good to shake off that sort of energy. You don't want to bring it back with you.
And it's weird. Like if you go out there are hundreds, if not thousands, of paranormal groups that are out there. There are tons. Like if you for this episode, I went out and I researched, paranormal support groups just to see what was out there. And what I had to dig through was just page after page after page after page after page of people's paranormal groups that they, paranormal investigative groups. So there's all these paranormal investigative groups that are out there, but there's not a whole lot of support groups out there for people that have had paranormal experiences. I mean, even if you think about people that that have really traumatic jobs, firefighters, police officers, even me and Vic, our work offers mental health services for people when we need it, because we go through a lot of traumatic experiences. And if you're a paranormal investigator that's worth your salt, that's been around for a while, you're going to be going through some very traumatic experiences and things like that. And so it leads me to believe that there's all these paranormal groups out there that are having these paranormal experiences and probably not able to get the mental health treatment they need.
But we're kind of a cloistered, insulary sort of people, like paranormal investigators. We tend to turn inward, and when we do turn outward, it's usually only so far as the people we really trust. At least that's my experience within the field. Likely, people are more reaching out to other investigators with similar experiences.
Right,
Which
but-
I really hope that that's what's people doing. I know when I run into an issue in the paranormal, I reach out to a close person that has had similar experiences. Like I will reach out to Marcus, or I'll reach out to Ricky, or I'll reach out to Adam.
But to me, that sounds like Paranormal Investigator Anonymous. Like this sounds like that's Paranormal Investigator Anonymous, which is great because you have somebody in that's a peer, that's like, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. You're talking to somebody that's your peer to help you. But there's even an element past that where somebody who's had a real, truly traumatic paranormal experiences that probably needs professional help. And, I wonder, like, actually, I don't even wonder, like, I know for a fact that's probably a giant hole that's in our community for stuff that we just don't have.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine going to a regular therapist or a regular psychiatrist and tried to talk about a paranormal experience.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess this is where, like, if you want to, like, for me, like, where I first started looking and I thought would probably be the easiest to look at what does mental health look like in the paranormal. Like, you can look at, like, abductee support groups. That's probably the most prevalent that's out there. Like, the number one prevalent support group that's out there. You can find abductee paranormal support groups. But if you look at, like, the professionals, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be mean with it, and I use professionals somewhat in a loose term. Like, I saw some people that looked like they were genuine licensed mental health providers that looked like they were providing services for people that have gone through a really traumatic experience of, say, like being abducted by aliens. But a lot of abductee mental health providers are like hypnotherapists. And the purpose of it is to try to, because again, a lot of abductees have experiences of screen memories. They have lost time. They have these absent memories of things that they can't remember. They just have flashes of their experience of being abducted. And these hypnotherapists, it seems, are people to try to help them regress and try to remember these past events. And me and Vic are not licensed therapists. Like, we're not. I mean, we're scrutinized heavily on the groups that we do at work, because again, you don't want to work outside your scope, because like, for example, like, we're not supposed to do self-expression groups where, like, for example, like, there's like a circle in the middle and you draw whatever you want, or guided meditation, things like that, because people that have acute mental illnesses, things like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, if they dive into their mind and then they have some sort of an experience, or they bring up some sort of memory, it requires an extremely trained professional to guide them back from that. So, it makes me, it worries me a little bit as to what some of those experiences are like with people that have to go through a hypnotherapist, that go through hypnotherapy to remember their abductee experiences.
It seems, I get it, especially with abduction. You want to know what happened to you.
Right.
It's like, I get that why this would exist, but I don't understand why there's not more for that. I have heard that there are UFO, like, group therapy sort of things, but they seem to be pretty rare.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think the closest one that I found even to us was in Chicago, of a group that meets up to talk about their experiences. And even if you go through, like, Facebook, like, there's tons of Facebook groups that are essentially supportive groups. If you suffer from anxiety, depression, all these things, there are groups for people that are there to support you and things like that. I found, like, one abductee group. It was very private, and I haven't been able to join again because I'd feel weird about being a part of that, because they really only wanted people that had actually had experiences to join the group, stuff like that. But there was a very, again, I was just sifting through just paranormal group after paranormal group on Facebook trying to find any. So why do you think there aren't more groups like that? Like, why do you think there is? Like, do you think that there's just not people coming forward with their experiences? Do you think?
I bet you on one side, it's a lack of professionals wanting to make that a focus of their career. And I think on the other hand, there's a degree of issues with stigma. Okay. One thing that I've noticed a lot of people in the mental health profession try to avoid is they don't want to get locked into conversations with a person who is currently delusional.
True.
They're difficult to get out of conversations. They can often be roller coaster rides of emotion for the person who's telling it. Although often when someone's reporting like a paranormal experience, like even if I'm working with someone who's delusional, who's talking about a paranormal thing, I don't chime in on it, but I don't immediately disbelieve it either. But I could see people trying to avoid that, assuming that everything in the group's going to be just delusion. Okay, just imagine you don't have any experience within the field of the paranormal. God. You are a master level therapist. You have been approached about running a group to help people deal with experiences that they've had outside of what would normally be deemed considered standard reality. If you don't have this sort of background, what does it sound like your job's going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I could easily see why people from outside the community would steer away from this.
Absolutely. Like I was reading an article from Baylor University by a guy named Christopher Bader, and he did this whole paper where he was researching support groups, essentially, like people's experiences and stuff of UFO abductees, as well as ritual abuse survivors, like people that survived the Satanic Panic they claim this, they claim that they were victimized during the Satanic Panic back during the 80s and things like that. And him trying to find information on these things, he had to reach out to some providers. Like in order for him to find the information on people that were reported victims of ritual abuse back in the 80s, he had to reach out to therapists and promise that all of the therapists would remain anonymous. They could reach out to their clients, and they themselves could actually report all of this data back to them. Like, it had to be super hush-hush for him to even get this data from professionals that were working with people that had claimed to have had these kind of experiences.
Do you think that predatory supernatural entities would likely target someone who is mentally ill?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thoughts too. Like,
absolutely.
Look at like some of the stuff that we've talked about over the years when it comes to shadow people. We've tried to work out an MO across a lot of different videos on this, and from what we can tell, based on the people that the shadow people who consistently, we're not talking about you just saw a shadow person. We're talking about the ones that come for repeat visits and just seem to be harassing a singular person. They seem to be looking for someone who can be broken down easily, that's not going to be trusted, and that they can try to gain dominance over without someone coming in to remove them from their life. Yeah. And I believe that they would target people like that.
Absolutely. When I first got into social work, and getting out, and I was talking to police officers, because here in Indiana we have a huge methamphetamine problem here in Indiana, and they were talking about people that like meth users. One of the things that happens to them is many of them report seeing the shadow people. Like, it's part of meth user culture. Like, people that are first started, current addicts will tell them, you may see the shadow people. These entities are going to come to you. I remember a lady that I had to talk to, that when she was on meth, she tore her whole van apart looking for the shadow people that she thought were in there. So I totally believe that an entity like this would probably prey on somebody.
This is a good segue here.
Yeah.
I know under the effects of a lot of different drugs, people claim to be able to have certain paranormal experiences, like in your example of meth and shadow people. Do you think this is a situation of the drug opening up your mind to being able to perceive that which was already there? Or do you think this is you placing yourself in a vulnerable position and then predatory supernatural beings now flocking to you? Is this like a blood in the water sort of thing, or is this you putting on your goggles to see the shark?
No, I think people turn to a lot of substances as an unhealthy way of coping with things, and I think that often makes it, and I think that this often makes it worse for people. I think that puts a lot of undue stress on them, and I think it makes them a target. I think it makes them a target for people.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to particularly meth, I think it's either it does something specific to the brain that causes a consistent hallucination, or it's opening up them to being a victim of this sort of spiritual attack.
You see the same thing with human predators too, that will target people that already have substance abuse problems, or will give them a substance abuse problem, so that it makes them easier to control, so that it makes them easier to victimize that person. So I think it puts them in a situation to open them up to paranormal entities.
Speaking of that sort of predatory behavior, I've also ran into cases where, and this is a lot of these I ran into back when me and Adam used to take a lot of cases here in Indiana. And we would occasionally run across cases where people were trying to utilize the paranormal as an excuse for their bad behavior. Like, for example, and this does go well beyond bad behavior into criminal behavior, but we had someone who contacted us through One Candle Society, and we're saying that they were dealing with issues of possession. Possession is already a issue that we generally steer clear of. There are certain things that we can help people with. There's certain things that we can't. And true possession is one of those things that we as a group have agreed that is more or less outside our scope. But usually when someone says possession, they don't truly mean possession. So we looked into the case anyways.
Yeah, if you tell us you're possessed, we're going to give you 1-800 the Pope.
Yeah. I'm going to refer you to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But or certain Shinto temples as well.
Yeah. We're going to find a Shinto temple in it here at Evansville.
You're going to travel. You're going to travel to go to it. But if you don't like the Catholic Church, I've seen some stuff out of some of the Shinto temples that makes me think they might be able to pull it off too.
Good point.
But okay, moving on. So we went to have our interview, and we would always have interviews with people before we would take their case. And basically what was being described was the boyfriend would go into this fugue state and then beat up his girlfriend and then say he felt like something had possessed him. And that's why they were reaching out to us as paranormal investigators. And yeah, we did not take this case.
Yeah.
We gave them all the information to various different groups that can help with domestic abuse situations and stuff like that. But this was a case that both me and Adams kind of looked at each other and went, this is not something that we should be taking on. This is something that should be being handled by a therapist, an anger management clinic, something along those lines. But we did say that if they went and got a psychological evaluation and returned with a clean bill of health, we would consider reopening it, but not before that. And we actually had done that several times. Back when we would do these cases, if someone came in with a situation where we were concerned that this could be mental health, not like the paranormal, what we'd always do is we'd say, we'd like for you to go in and get seen for a consult. And then if they give you clean bill of health, just come right back to us. We are ready to open this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, and that's a very, I think that's a very good standard to hold. I mean, that's what the Catholic Church does. I mean, if the real story of, from the movie The Exorcist, the Catholic Church turned down that family numerous times until they had eliminated mental health as a possibility. before they actually did the exorcism.
And I think that's important to do for the safety of the person who's coming to you for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we did this every time, just times where we felt there's something hinky going on that we thought, oh, there might be more to it than just this.
Mm-hmm. You know, and speaking of mental health, is this a good point to transition to a new topic? Or do we want to keep going on this?
I don't know. What you got?
So something that we don't talk a whole lot about on our podcast and on the channel, really, we don't talk about psychics a whole lot.
Oh, that's true.
Like psychic, like, you know, I'm a pretty big skeptic. Like, I'll be the first between me and Vic to really like scrutinize the story, to look for like a logical explanation or something. But, you know, really deep down, psychic phenomena, like psychics, are something that I generally actually believe in. I think the phenomenon is probably rare. But one of the things that I've had a hard time believing is that more psychics don't struggle with mental health, like mental health issues. And because if you think about it, imagine if you yourself could go out and you were either picking up everybody's thoughts around you, or everybody's emotions and how they felt up to supernatural levels. I don't know how somebody could maintain their sanity with that. I mean, I think the average person locked with their own demons in their head is hard enough as is. But now you got to deal with everybody's around you. I'm always so surprised.
I was listening to an interview maybe a year or so ago on Mysterious Universe, where they were talking with a lady who can see spirits. Not spirits as in like ghosts and mediums, more like spirits as in like an animistic spirit, or like bring up Shintoism for a second, like a Shinto spirit who's been able to see that. And she basically discussed how, yeah, for a long time this really screwed me up, and the only thing that really helped me was accepting that these were real. Yeah. That's what got me moving again.
Yeah. Like when I do stand-up comedy, being able to read a room is a real thing. Like, you can go out and you can feel the energy of a room. Now, I'm not claiming that's any sort of like weird psychic, like that's not a paranormal thing to me. But I've gotten highs off of feeling the energy coming off a room like that, or it's brought me real low. I'm just thinking about like the amount of, like, if you take that to a paranormal level on somebody, how that doesn't drive people insane for early age. Because the thing that I've heard from a lot of people is that, I learned to cultivate it at an early age. But I have a hard time even believing that kids that young could handle that kind of trauma. I mean, kids deal with a lot of trauma, I guess, but that's always stuck with me. Like, that just thought of, I don't know how people come to terms with that.
I'm not a psychic, but I've always kind of held by this viewpoint when it came to that. If you're stuck in a situation where you have these experiences, you have no control really at that point to stop it. Mm-hmm. You either learn to survive it, or you don't. Mm-hmm. And most people are going to find a way to cope with it because they don't have an option to not cope with it. Mm-hmm. This is what their reality is. This is in their face. You got to learn to survive with it, or you're going to die.
Could you imagine the kind of coping skills that it would take for a person to be able to come to terms with that? Like,
it would take really hardcore coping skills, but they'd be really well cemented by the time you're an adult.
But think about how much me and you have to do, how much we have to do to cope with the trauma, the stuff that we see on a day-to-day basis. And then think about what a person would have to do if they had supernatural levels of empathy or telekinetic ability to be able to read people's minds or their thoughts.
It's been a while since I read the article, but I was reading an article a while back, and they were talking about empathy and how it's not something that you can just stretch out there all the time. Empathy is a finite resource that we have, that you can give out so much empathy, but at a certain point, it starts to double back on you. It starts becoming a stressor. It starts becoming a weight around your neck. And how that people who are overly empathetic are at extreme risk for doing serious mental harm to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Like, being in a constant state of being in touch with other people's emotions, I could see how that could be incredibly overwhelming.
Like the stuff that we see at work, well, we have to come to. I mean, there's days we have a rough day, and we have to just go out for a drink or just something to just decompress.
Just for clarification, guys, I know we've been dancing around the issue a little bit. We work with some amazing people, but we do work on a unit that can be very aggressive at times, and it's not uncommon for us to get death threats or have someone take a swing at us. That's just part of doing the job, and of course, we always come at it from the perspective of
they're sick,
calm them back. They're sick. Help them calm them back down, and then we're all going to be friends again.
And you have to do that, but I don't think everybody has the ability to do that.
I don't think everybody does. Okay. While we're talking about mental hospitals and things like that, what about the almost constant folklore of haunted mental hospitals?
Oh yeah. I was reading about one in Massachusetts that has like its own weird particular shadow person being that's got that crawls on the walls in there, or Waverly,
and it would not surprise me at all if it was a situation where they are more likely to be haunted than other structures.
Absolutely.
Because think about all the energy that's been poured out in those areas, all the stress, all the anguish, all the pain.
It's like a buffet for predatory paranormal entities.
Yeah, and the whole place would be extremely charged around. Like, people talk about emotionally charged areas being prime spots for paranormal activity, and I could only imagine someone in a manic state putting out distress would put out a ton more emotional energy than an average person in anguish.
Absolutely.
And now imagine a building filled with people like that.
But think about, go back to Waverly. Waverly's been closed for what year? God, 30 years at least. I mean, they've been closed for a while, and it's still haunted. It's still a paranormal, top paranormal investigative place for everybody.
And once a place gets saturated like that, do you think it really ever recovers, though?
No, I don't think. I think probably something like that. It's probably going to stain it for a very long time.
Like, I've never been to Waverly. I've always kind of wanted to go, but at the same time, it's one of those. Everyone goes.
It's because it's expensive to get in.
And everyone goes to Waverly.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, why do I want to go to trod the boards at some place where everyone's trotted the boards? Yeah. I'd rather go someplace like brand spanking new. That's one of the reasons I really like Ricky.
Yeah,
Ricky always has the weirdest places for us to go.
He's like, I found this random abandoned tunnel out in the middle of nowhere. Let's go. I'm like,
that was really fun.
That's awesome. Or we found that abandoned lock and dam up in Leavenworth. He always finds those weird places for us to go and things like that.
Let's see. Anything else that we were wanting to hit up on the paranormal and mental health?
I think we touched on a lot of. I think we touched on a lot of different stuff.
There are a few things we could have hit on, but maybe we can push some of that off. Maybe we'll do a part 2 of this, like in a year or something.
We still have the pillow talk segment that we got to go into.
I know we were wanting to talk about a lot about like psychology and the abduction experience.
Yes, let's do that. I think this may be a good. Time to kind of segue into that, because I think that we've been going about this for a while. So anyway, guys, I hope that you guys liked this episode. I know it was a little different than normally for what me and Vic did, but I thought it would be a good opportunity for me and Vic to kind of highlight some stuff that doesn't get brought up enough, I think, in the paranormal community. And it gave us a chance to kind of talk about a little bit of our professional experience and how we mix that professional experience with the paranormal as well.
And if you like this sort of thing, let us know, and we'll do a follow-up in maybe a year.
We can definitely do a part 2 of this easily.
And if you don't like this sort of thing, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know below.
We just wanted to give you guys something a little different than our usual of diving into an obscure story.
So I hope you guys enjoy that, guys. But until next time, keep believing.
Because we'll keep listening.
All right, guys. Now we're gonna slide into our pillow talk segment here. This is where we continue the episode for our patrons who get a little bit more of this episode, where we talk about some other stuff here for our episode. If you guys are enjoying this, all you got to do to get the rest of this episode is go over to our Patreon and sign up to become a patron today.
You said episode so many times there.
Hoosh. Hoosh. You know what? This Red's Apple Peach is starting to kick in. Okay?
I mean, apparently one is too much.
One is too many for me. Okay. I don't think I have a drinking problem though. But that got me thinking about something. Going back to the shadow people thing that I was talking about, that is really a thing in the meth community. Like when you start doing meth, the veteran tweaker is supposed to tell you, like, look, man, okay, when you do this, you may see some shadow people with red glowing eyes that may come after you. Like, if that doesn't scare you away from drugs, I don't think the DARE program stands a chance, okay? I'm sorry.
Oh, damn, man.
Like, it's just... It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. Like, I don't think the DARE program is as effective as what people make it out to be, but... All right. So again, we're gonna keep this episode going. I thought we'd talk a little bit more about the psychology of the abductee experience, because that's probably
okay. I want to jump right into this.
Okay.
I have an elephant in the room I want to start talking about.
Okay. Let's talk about the elephant.
Okay. During hypnotic regression, you're very susceptible to influence, and a lot of major cases come from accounts recounted during hypnotic